Hello, thank you for visiting this training video hosted by DXC Technology. Today, I'm going to show you how to enroll a new facility in the Provider Management module for Vermont Medicaid. Before we begin, please note that this video is intended for informational purposes only and does not guarantee approval of your enrollment in Vermont Medicaid. If you have further questions regarding Vermont Medicaid's enrollment criteria, please contact the Enrollment Department at DXC Technology at 802-879-4450, option 4, or email us at vtproviderenrollment@dxc.com. For today's presentation, I'm going to start on the homepage of the Provider Management module. You can access the link to the module by visiting www.vtmedicaid.com and click on the Enrollment tab. To start a new enrollment in the Provider Management module, I'm first going to click on the menu button located on the top left-hand corner. Under that, I'm going to hover over Provider Enrollment and I'm going to click on New Enrollment. The first thing that's going to populate is the home page of a new enrollment. This is going to give you some more information of what you may need in order to complete your application. Once you've read the information and are ready to begin, you can hit Start in the bottom right-hand corner. The next page that's going to populate is the registration page. Every application is required to register in order to obtain a unique application tracking number or an ATN. This application tracking number is important in order to resume an application that you've started and weren't able to complete in one sitting, or to check the status of your enrollment after you've submitted it. You're required to put in an email address and to create a password. There is a place for a provider reference. This is just an internal reference that you may use in order to determine who you are working on throughout the application, but it's not required that you enter information here. Once you've entered in all the registration information, you can hit Register in the bottom right-hand corner. This is going to launch us into a brand new application. It's going to give you a box with your application tracking number, and it's also going to let you know that it emailed that application tracking number to the email during the registration process. A couple things to note before we begin. Your application tracking number will follow you throughout the application, and it will be located on the top of your screen. If you need help on a specific page that you are working on, there is page level help, which is located on the top right of the screen and indicated with a blue question mark. You can click on this blue question mark for more information on the page that you're currently working on. If you need help with a specific field that you are entering, there is a gray question mark over the field, and if you hover over that, it will give you more information about what needs to go in that field to be complete. Anything marked with a blue asterisk is required, and you are required to fill out the information before moving on and saving and going on to the next page. So the first piece of information we're going to fill out is our enrollment type. As stated in the beginning, we are doing a facility enrollment today, so I'm going to choose facility. Once you choose an enrollment type, a warning box is going to populate, letting you know that once you save and continue this first page, you will not be able to go back and change your enrollment type. The next piece of information that we're going to fill out is the provider type, so I'm going to choose from the drop-down box. And so for today, I'm going to be a general hospital. And again, once you've chosen a provider type, the same warning is going to populate, letting you know that once you save and navigate past the first page, it's not going to let you go back and change your provider type. The reason for this is you'll notice that once I chose my enrollment type and my provider type, all of these panels populated. That's because the Provider Management module application process is tailored to those pieces of information. So once I save and continue, the rest of the application is designed to ask me questions in regards to a facility for a general hospital. That's why you can't go back and change it after the fact. If down the line you realize that you chose the wrong enrollment type or provider type, you would need to start over a new application. The next piece of information I'm going to enter is my effective date, and you can enter in a date that's up to 1 year in the past or up to 90 days in the future. You would need to give us your legal name of your hospital. You can enter in a tax name or a DBA if you choose, but they are not required. You are required to give us an MPI for this facility and an EIN. After that, there's a series of 3 questions. The first is, are you currently enrolled as a provider? If you choose yes here, a red box is going to populate and it's going to ask, are you actually here to revalidate? If you're currently enrolled as a provider in Vermont Medicaid, you have to revalidate every 5 years. And if that is if that's what you're here to do, this is not the right avenue to do so. So you would click yes and it would bring you back to the home page in order to start the revalidation process. We are doing a new application today, so I'm going to hit no, and I'm going to change my answer back to no. We're going to ask you if you were previously enrolled as a provider. If you choose yes, you will be required to enter in your 14-digit service location ID that was previously assigned to you as a provider. And last, we're going to ask you if you're Medicare enrolled. I'm going to choose yes for today. You'll notice that nothing populates here for me to enter, but because I chose yes, later on in the application, it is going to ask me for that Medicare information. Next, I need to choose from the drop-down list for the programs that I'm enrolling in. Currently, Vermont Medicaid only has one program to choose, which is fee-for-service only, so you're simply going to choose fee-for-service only. The next piece of information on the general information page is the contact information. This is the contact information for this application. So whoever we would need to contact in the event we needed more information in order to enroll, you would want to put that contact information here. Now you'll notice that as I tabbed through the zip code, it's processing through the United States Postal Service to validate the address that I entered. It's going to bring up any suggested changes. So for instance, in this case, it added the last 4 of the zip code to my address. I'm going to accept those changes by clicking anywhere here in the line item. However, if you did not want to accept the changes, you could simply click the X button located in the top right-hand corner. I need to enter in a phone type, so I'm going to enter in a work number for today. If you have an extension or a fax number, you can enter that here. Now you'll notice as I'm filling out my email address that this is not marked as being required. However, below the email address, there is a question regarding your preferred communication. You have the option of either email or mail. If you choose email, you will not be able to navigate past this first page without entering an email address. We do recommend that your preferred communication is email, as notifications regarding this application will get to you much faster this way. So I am at the end of the first page and I have the option now to save and continue. However, before I do so, I just want to go back to the beginning of the page to reiterate how important it is to make sure that you choose the right enrollment type and provider type, because once I hit that save and continue, I will not be able to change these pieces of information. So for today, I know that I have chosen the right enrollment type and provider type. So I'm going to scroll back to the bottom and I'm going to hit save and continue. Populates is our specialties tab. Now you'll notice up at the top, I have a progress bar that lets me know where I am in this process. The General Information tab is now white, which means I have completed it. I can go back and review the information, make changes as necessary, except for my enrollment type and provider type. Any page that you're currently working on is marked in yellow, and any page that you have not yet completed is marked in blue. And you'll notice that you do have to go in order of the panels. I'm not able to jump around and skip to a page without going in order. So it is required that I list at least one primary specialty on the Specialties tab. My provider type is listed at the top. So in order to do so, I need to make a new entry in the box below. To make a new entry, I'm going to hit the Create New button that's located on the right-hand side. This is going to bring up a new box, allowing me to enter a specialty. I'm going to make this specialty my primary, so I'm going to check the box. And I'm going to choose from specialties that are allowed with this provider type. So the provider management module application process is designed to be intuitive to the choices that you have made. Because I chose the provider type 001 for a general hospital, I'm only going to see specialties that are allowed with a general hospital. So for today, I'm going to say that we are a hospital with swing bed. Next, I need to add a taxonomy, and just like the specialties, the taxonomies that are listed here are ones that are allowed with the specialty. Because I chose hospital with a swing bed, I'm only going to see taxonomies that are allowed with that specialty. And I'm going to say we're critical access. You need to enter an effective date of your specialty. Once all that information is Once all of that information is entered, you can hit Save to continue. And now you'll notice that I have an entry listed here. If for any reason you need to edit this entry, you realize that maybe you chose the wrong taxonomy, you can click on the pencil icon that's located on the right side of that line item. A pencil icon in the module means that field is editable. So it'll bring you right back to your entry, and you could drop the box down again and say, oh, we're actually General Acute Care Hospital, and then just save your entry. If you had multiple specialties, you could simply repeat the process, adding a new specialty. Just don't check the box that says primary because you can only have one primary specialty. Once you've entered in all necessary specialties, you can hit Save and continue. The next panel that populates is the Addresses tab. This is where you're going to give us 3 addresses that are required in order to complete your application. The first is your service location. And the first field that you need to fill out is the billing name. Now this needs to be listed exactly how you're going to be billing it on your claim form. So I'm going to be billing as DXC Hospital, so I need to add that into the billing name for my service location. You need to provide contact information for this service location. So this may be different than the contact information you gave us at the beginning for this application. This is the actual service location information. Where does this facility live? And again, you're going to notice that once I tab through the zip code on my address, that it's going to go through that software. Every address in the provider management module has to be validated through the software. And I'm going to click to accept the changes. You'll also want to provide an email for the service location. And it is required that you add at least one phone number for the service location. So again, here is our box to make our entry. In order to make that entry, we're going to hit Create New. That's going to bring us up another box. You need to choose the phone type first, followed by the phone number. And if you have an extension, you can add that here. And then you can hit Save to continue. Under the phone number, we're going to ask you a few questions regarding the service address. The first is your hours of operation. So you want to check the box here, which is going to open up another panel in order for you to give us that information. I'm going to hit Create New to make a new entry. And you have a multitude of different options here for entering your hours. If you drop the first box down, you have the option to do every day, to do just a specific day with a specific time. You can choose from weekdays or weekends, whatever you need in order to complete the actual hours worked at your practice. This is a facility, which is a general hospital, so I'm going to choose that we're open every day and we're open 24 hours a day. I'm going to hit Save to continue. And now you'll notice that my entry is here. Below that, we're going to ask, is the service location ADA compliant? Is the service location accessible by public transportation? And what are your after-hours arrangements? In this case, we're open, so I'm just going to write open. If this was a different facility that actually closed down, you would want to let us know how you would direct members in the event that you were not open. This could be emergency room or an answering service. And if it's an answering service, you can provide the phone information down below. The next required address is a pay-to address. Where are we going to send your payments? You have 2 options here. The first would be to enter in an address. So if your pay-to address is different than your service location address, you would want to enter that address here. If your pay-to is the same as your service location, you can simply check the Same as Service Location button, and it's going to populate and copy that information for you. This is the same with the email and phone number. If it is different than your service location information, you could enter in new information here. If it's the same, you can check the box and it will copy the information. The last address that you are required to fill out is a mail-to address. Where are we going to send correspondence? And again, you have a few different options. If your mail-to address is different than your pay-to and your service location address, you can just simply enter in the new information here. If the information is the same as your service location, you can check service location. And if the pay to address you entered was different than your service location, but the same as your mail to, you could just choose pay to address. I'm going to choose that it's the same as my service location today, so it's going to copy the information for me. And again, with your email and phone, you have the same options. So I'm going to drop the box down and choose service location. I do want to note on the mail to address that if you copy the same as service location or pay to, it's going to automatically default your preferred communication to mail. It is again recommended that you choose email in order to get notifications faster and more efficiently. So I just want to make sure to toggle that back to email. That finishes the required addresses on this page, so I can hit save and continue and move on. However, if you did have an address for prior authorization, remittance, legal, or medical records request that you want services or information to go to, you want to make sure to fill out that information. So if you had a prior authorization specific address, you would simply click the plus button to expand the selection, and it's going to bring you fields in order to complete that information. You'll notice that nothing is asterisk. It's not required that you give us a prior authorization address. However, if you start entering in an address, you must complete it in order to continue. Once you've entered in all necessary information on this page, you can hit save and continue. The next page that populates is the organization page. This is where you're going to give us details regarding your organization. The first thing you need to provide to us is your organization type. So I'm going to drop the box down here, and I'm going to select today that we are a corporation. And you would need to give us your tax classification. So again, I'm going to choose corporation. If you're registered with the Secretary of State, incorporated, chain affiliated, operated by management company, domestic or foreign owned, you would want to check the appropriate boxes. If none of these apply, you can move on from this. For today, I'm going to choose I'm registered with the Secretary of State, and I need to put in the business start date in order to accept this change. Once you've entered in all the necessary information regarding your organization, you can hit save to continue. The next page that populates is the associations page. It is not required that your facility enters in any individual associations to continue. And the reason for that is if you are a new hospital and you are enrolling the hospital, there may be a chance that your individuals are not yet enrolled with Vermont Medicaid. And once they start the enrollment process, they do have the opportunity to associate to your facility. However, if you do have individuals that you are ready to associate during this application, I'm going to show you how to do that. So what we want to do is make a new association. We're going to start by hitting Create New. And the piece of information that you're going to need to provide is that individual's 14-digit service location ID that is unique to them for their enrollment. You want to obtain this from the individual. However, if you can't do so, this information is available on the vtmedicaid.com website under Provider Lookup. If you can't find it there, you do have the option to contact the enrollment department at DXC to obtain that information. So I do have my 14-digit ID for my individual, so I'm going to enter that here. And I'm going to hit Tab in order for it to look for that person. Now, this person is an ordering, prescribing, referring, or attending physician, and that is in order to associate to a facility. So once that information is populated, you have to give us the effective date. And chances are you do not have an end date for this association. If you do, you can definitely enter it here. However, if you don't have an end date, we just recommend that you put the association end date as the end of time. Once you've entered in that information, you can hit Save. And now this individual is associated to this facility upon approval. If you had multiple associations that you wanted to make, you could simply hit Create New and repeat the process and put in the next 14-digit provider ID. There is no limit to how many associations you can have. Once you've completed all of your associations, you can hit Save to continue. Our next page that we need to fill out is the credentials page. It's going to start by asking for license information. So to create a new entry, I'm going to hit Create New on the right-hand side. I'm going to first put in my license number, followed by the issuing state, the issuing board, the effective date, and the end date of my license. Once all the necessary information is completed, you can hit Save to continue. You'll notice that my entry is here. If I had multiple licenses held, I could just simply hit Create New and make a new entry. Because we chose in the beginning of our application that we are participating in Medicare, we now have to provide the Medicare information. So I'm going to start by making a new entry under Medicare participation. I'm going to hit Create New. I do want to be considered for Medicare crossover claims, so I'm going to check that box. I need to enter in my Medicare number. I also need to give the Medicare type that I'm enrolled in. So I'm going to start by choosing Medicare Part A. I have to provide the effective date and the end date of that enrollment. And now I can hit Save. But I also want to note that I am Medicare Part B enrolled. So I want to make a new entry, but now choosing Medicare Part B. So I'm going to hit Create New again. I do want to be considered for Medicare crossover claims on my Part B. I'm going to put in that Medicare number. And now I'm going to choose Medicare Part B from the drop-down list. I'm going to choose the effective date and the end date of my enrollment. And now I can hit Save, and both entries are now listed. We're next going to ask you if you're enrolled in any other state Medicaid programs. If you are, you want to choose Yes, and that's going to bring up a new box to allow you to give us more information regarding the other state Medicaid programs you're enrolled in. You would need to give us the program name, the state, the effective, and the end date. If you are not enrolled in any other Medicaid programs, you could simply click No. That box is removed, and you can move on. The last thing I'm going to provide on this panel is the DEA information. So I'm going to make a new entry by hitting Create New. I'm going to provide my DEA number, the effective date, and the end date to my DEA. And I'm going to hit Save. Once you've filled out all the necessary information on the Credential tab, you can hit Save to continue. The next tab is the ProviderType tab. This is where you're going to give us some more information regarding your hospital. First, we're going to ask you for the CLIA. So if you have a CLIA, you're going to hit Create New to make an entry. You're going to give us that CLIA number, the CLIA type. So I'm going to drop the box down and choose from these selections. And I'm going to choose that this is a regular CLIA, the effective date, and the end date of my CLIA. And I can hit Save. Under the CLIA information is bed information. So you want to start by hitting Create New to make a new entry. You're first going to select the bed type. So for this one, I'm going to first select general beds, how many beds are there, the effective date, and the end date. And I'm going to hit Save to continue. If you had multiple entries to make here, different bed information, you would simply want to repeat the process and hit Create New again. Select the bed type. The number of beds, and the effective and end date again. And now I can hit Save. Under the bed information is going to be the DME information, the durable medical equipment for an enrolling facility. If any of these are applicable to you, you want to fill out this information. If none of this is applicable, you'll notice that it is not asterisk. You are not required to fill out this information. Once you fill out all the necessary information on the provider type panel, you can hit Save to continue. This brings us to the Other tab, and we're going to start filling out the Other tab by selecting any languages that are spoken at our facility. We're going to hit Create New to make a new entry. We're going to drop the box down and select from the list below. So I'm going to select English first, but I also speak Spanish at this facility, so I'm going to hit Create New again, drop the box down, and select Spanish. And you can repeat this process as many times as you have languages. Under that will be certifications. So if you hold any certifications, you can report that to us here. This is not a required field to move on. However, if you do want to report the certifications to us, you would just want to give us the specialty the certification applies to, the certificate type, the number, the effective, and the end date of that certification. Under the certifications is a question regarding your provider website URL. So if your facility holds a website that you want to report to be available to our members, you can enter in that URL here. You just want to make sure that it starts with HTTP or HTTPS so that it is a valid URL. Next, we need to fill out information regarding our malpractice carrier. So I'm going to start by hitting Create New to make a new entry for our malpractice information. You need to let us know the type of carrier, if it's comprehensive general or if it's professional, the name of the carrier, the policy number, the coverage amount for aggregate, and the coverage amount per occurrence. Now you'll notice that I did not make any special character entries here. I didn't put any dollar signs or decimals or commas in here. The provider management module will not accept those special characters, so you want to make sure just to stick to numbers in this field. And lastly, you need to let us know your effective and end date for this policy. Once all the information is completed, you can hit Save to continue. Under the malpractice information will be a question regarding if you currently have or within the last 10 years been involved in a malpractice suit or a claim. If you choose yes, a new box will populate and you will be required to give us more information regarding that suit or claim. You would just simply hit Create New to make a new entry and give us the necessary information. If you have not, you can hit No. That box is removed and you have completed the requirement. You can save and continue. We're at the end of the Other tab, so I'm going to hit Save to continue. The next panel we need to fill out is regarding electronic funds transfer, or EFT. It automatically populates to no, stating you don't want to enroll for EFT and you want to receive paper checks. So if that is the case, then you can leave it as no and you can hit Save to continue. If you do want to enroll for electronic funds transfer, you want to check the Yes button. This is going to populate a page for you. First, it's going to show you the provider information that you filled out in the beginning, that's pre-populated, as well as the provider identifier information. So there's nothing else that you need to fill out in these two fields to continue. Below that will be an option to enter in information regarding contact, agent, agency, or pharmacy. These are also not required fields. However, if you did want to provide information regarding these 4 tabs, you would simply expand the line item, which would bring up more information in order for you to fill that out. What is going to be required on this page is the financial information. So I'm going to start by entering in my financial institution name. We do not require that you give us the financial institution address information, so you can leave this blank. This is not required. You will need to provide us the routing number, the type of account, if it's a checking or a savings, and the provider's account number. Under that, you have the option to link the account to your tax ID number or NPI. You can toggle between these two and it will change below. We're going to choose tax ID number for today. I do want to note at the bottom of this page is a section called Submission. You'll notice that nothing is required, nothing is marked blue here. However, if you were to drop this box down, it's going to say to include in your enrollment submission a voided check or a bank letter. To avoid confusion, I just want to be clear that you are not required to send us a voided check or a bank letter in order to complete this transaction. Once you've filled out all the necessary information, you can hit Save to continue. Our next panel is the Disclosures panel. It's very important that you read over the Privacy Act notice statement, as well as the conditions regarding ownership and controlling interest. Located on this page will be 5 disclosure forms. The first is the provider self-disclosure, which is required for every provider. Under that, we have subcontractor, ownership and control, managing employees, and business transaction. You'll notice that under each one of these forms has a status of new. We need the statuses to say complete in order to continue on. So we're going to action the provider self-disclosure first. In order to do so, I'm going to hit Create New on the right-hand side of the line item. This brings up a blank provider self-disclosure form. It's going to populate the legal name and the EIN that we entered in the beginning. And then it's going to ask a series of questions that you are required to answer for your self-disclosure. You'll notice that all the questions are pre-populated to yes. It is very important that you read each question very carefully so that you understand how to answer it. If you answer the question as yes, there is a box located below the question, and you will be required to give us more information regarding why you answered yes on this question. I've read through these questions very carefully, so now I'm going to go ahead and make my answers. And you'll notice that when I change my answer to no here, the box goes away that was located below because we're not required to give any more information. So I'm going to go through and answer those questions. Once I get to the general questions, I answered no here. So under the general questions, there is going to be a required contact information in the event of an audit. So if there was an audit related to this enrollment, who would you want us to contact? So I'm going to enter in the information here with the contact name and the address. And again, you'll notice I'm going to enter in the address, and then it's going to go through that USPS software to validate my address. I'm going to accept the changes. I also need to give a phone number for the auditing purposes. And then underneath that address will be another address that is required, and this address is the physical location of where your records are kept. So again, this may be different than any other address you've been giving to us during this application process. Where do you actually keep your physical records? I'm going to let it go through that software, and I'm going to accept the changes. I'm also going to provide a phone number for medical records. In case Vermont Medicaid needs to ask for medical records, we'd like to know the information to go directly to that person. Underneath that address, I do want to point out this question. This question states, in accordance with 32 VSA, I declare that I am currently not in good standing with respect to any and all taxes due. So if you answer yes to this question, that means you are currently not in good standing with your taxes. If you answer no, it means that you are in good standing. So for today, I'm going to answer no, but you want to make sure that you read each question very carefully in order to understand how to answer it. I'm going to finish up with the last few questions here. Once you've completed the last question, you can hit Save to continue. And now you'll notice that it brought us back to the disclosure page, and my provider self-disclosure status is now completed. So we want to do that for each one of these other disclosure forms. However, I want to be clear that just because you are creating a new disclosure form does not mean you actually have one. And let me show you what I mean by that. So we're going to start with the subcontractor disclosure form, and I don't have any. So I'm going to hit Create New to make a new entry, and it's going to bring me up a blank subcontractor disclosure form. Now, if I choose yes for this first question, I have to fill out all this information. If I choose no, all of that information is removed. So you want to read the first question first. So this question states, has the provider had any business transactions with any subcontractor totaling more than $25,000 during the preceding 12-month period? So if you choose yes again, you have to fill out the information. If you don't have any, you choose no, and you've completed the requirement. You can save to continue. And now you'll notice that my subcontractor disclosure is completed. I'm going to move on to ownership and controlling interest. I'm going to hit Create New to make a new entry. I'm going to read the first question carefully, and this states, is there any entity, individual or corporation with an ownership or controlling interest in the disclosing entity as described above, which means totaling 5% or more. I'm going to choose yes here in order to show you how to fill this out. But again, if you didn't have any, you would choose no, and you could simply save to continue. So I'm going to choose yes. I do have an individual that has more than 5%. I'm going to choose that this individual has 10%. I'm going to give the name of the individual, the social security number, the date of birth, and the address of that individual. I'm going to let it go through that USPS software, and I'll go ahead and accept the changes. I have to provide the email address for this individual. And next I need to enter in the effective date of this association. So I'm going to enter in the effective date. And again, you may not have an end date. If you do have a specific end date, you could enter that here, but it's going to default to the end of time, so feel free to leave it at the end of time. Then it's going to ask you a series of questions regarding this individual. So you want to read each question very carefully. You'll notice that they all default to yes again. And there's a box below, because the entry is yes, to give more information. So if your entry is yes, you want to give us and provide us the rest of this information by creating a new entry. Again, I've read these questions, so I'm going to go through this disclosure form and change my answers. And once you get to the last question, you have now met all the requirements. You can hit save to continue. And now you'll notice that our status is now completed for our ownership and controlling interest. I'm going to move on to managing employees. I'm going to hit create new again. I'm going to read the very first question. Is there any managing employee entity associated with the provider's organization? If you choose no, that goes away. You can hit save and you've completed the requirement. I'm going to choose yes for today so I can show you how to fill this out. We're going to ask what is the relationship of the entity to the provider's organization, and I'm going to say this is my managing employee. And just like the ownership and control, you will need to give us information regarding the individual, including the social security number, their name, their date of birth, and their address. So I'm going to enter in all the necessary information here. Tab through the zip code. It's going to go through that software, and I'm going to accept the changes. And then you'll need to provide us again the email address. And confirm it, because we want to make sure that we have the right email. And you'll need to provide us the effective date. Again, if you have an end date specific, you can enter that here, or you can leave it to the end of time. Just like our self-disclosure and our ownership and controlling interest disclosure, you're going to need to ask or answer a series of questions here. So you want to go through, read each question very carefully, and answer accordingly. Once you've answered all the questions, you can hit save to continue. And now we've completed the managing employees. Lastly, I'm going to move on to business transaction. I'm going to hit create new. And today I'm going to say, has the no to the provider entity had any significant business transactions with any wholly owned supplier or with any subcontractor during the preceding 5-year period? I'm going to say no to this one. And I've now completed the requirement. I can hit save to continue. So now you'll notice that all of our statuses are completed, which means I can save and continue and move on. A couple other things I want to note about the disclosure section is that the Create New button is still available for all subcontractor, ownership, managing, and business transaction. For obvious reasons, the self-disclosure you can only enter one time. But if you had multiple managing employees or subcontractors, you can make new entries to disclose all of that information to us. So you would simply hit Create New again, and it would bring you up a blank form, and you could fill out your next managing employee. If you want to see the forms that you've previously completed, you can simply click in the white area located anywhere in the line item you wish to see. So I'm going to click here in Managing Employees, and that's going to bring me up my disclosure for this managing employee. You can edit it, you can review it, you can do whatever you would like in order to do your review process for this disclosure. Once you've completed all your disclosures, you can hit save to continue. The next panel we are going to be looking at is the Attachments panel. This is where you are going to attach any necessary documentation that is required for your enrollment. So for this general hospital enrollment, hospital with a swing bed, these are the required attachments in order to complete your application. You'll notice that all the requirement met sections are no. That means we have to action each one of these in order to move on. So in order to do so, you want to go down below to the attachment details. This is where you're going to tell us how you're going to get this information to us. So first, I'm going to action our IRS W-9 form. Action the attachments required up top. We're first going to click Create New on the attachment details. The first thing you need to do is let us know what transmission method you are going to use to get these attachments to us. You have the option to choose mail, electronic only, email, or fax. We highly recommend that you choose electronic only and upload them right here onto your application. The reason for this is if you choose to upload them electronically, once you submit your application, your enrollment application automatically goes through the screening service and is put into a queue for DXC and the state of Vermont to review. If you choose by mail, email, or fax, once you hit submit on your application, it's in a holding status until we receive those attachments, which we then have to process and attach and upload to your application, and then it will go through the screening process. So I'm going to choose electronic only for today. And like I said, we have to action each one of the items up top. So I'm going to start by actioning our W-9. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to select IRS W-9. And then I'm going to go find that file on my computer. So I'm going to hit Select Files. I'm going to find that file for my IRS W-9. And I'm going to upload it right to the screen. Once it's done uploading, it will have a check mark with a done status, and you can hit Save to continue. And now you'll notice that I have my first entry. I've chosen to upload it electronically. This is my W-9, and here is my file name. Now, if I scroll back up to the requirements, you'll notice that my IRS W-9 is in a Yes Requirement Met status. Now, I want to be clear that the presence of a yes does not mean that you uploaded the attachment electronically. It just means that you've actioned it down below. So if you've chosen to transmit it to us by mail, email, or fax, you would still need to send those documents to us. Next, I'm going to do our professional license. So I'm going to scroll down again and make a new entry for that professional license. Again, I'm going to select electronic only. I'm going to select professional license that I'm attaching. I'm going to find the file on my computer. And I'm going to attach it. I can hit save when it's done uploading. And now I'm going to move on to my CLIA certificate. So I'm going to hit Create New, select Electronic Only, select I'm uploading my CLIA certificate, and go find the file on my computer. And I'm going to save that. Next, I'm going to do my proof of professional liability insurance, Electronic Only, proof of professional liability, and find my file. So in addition, as I'm going through the rest of these requirements, in addition to the required attachments, you do have the option to attach other things if you feel them necessary to add with your enrollment. It's just that these are the items that are required in order for you to be able to continue. So I'm doing my CMS swing bed. And last but not least, my accreditation confirmation. So last, I'm going to do electronic only again, find accreditation confirmation, and select the file. I'll hit Save to complete. And now you'll notice that all of my files are listed down below. Here, there's a scroll bar so I can see them all. And up top, all of my requirements have been met. Now that all the requirements have been met, I'm able to save and continue on to the next page. So the next page we need to review is the fees page. The Affordable Care Act requires certain providers to remit an enrollment application fee. It's very important that you read over the information at the top of this page carefully as you know how to answer the information below. There's a set of 4 questions that's going to determine whether or not this facility application requires a fee to be paid to Vermont Medicaid. The first question is regarding service location. Is the service location enrolled in Medicare? If the service location is enrolled in Medicare, you want to check yes. So we indicated that we are Medicare enrolled and we gave the Medicare information, so it would be appropriate for us to check yes in this situation. Have you paid an application fee to another state Medicaid's program? We indicated that we don't have any other state Medicaid programs, so I'm going to click no. Have you received a waiver of the application fee from Medicare or another state's Medicaid program because of financial hardship? So if you enrolled in Medicare and you received a waiver at that time, you would choose yes here. If it's the same with this other state Medicaid, if you received a waiver for another state Medicaid, you would check yes here. We did not, we are going to check no. Last but not least, are you requesting a waiver of the application fee because of financial hardship? If this applies to you, you would check yes. If it does not, you would check no. Now that I've answered all 4 of these questions, you'll see that the amount due is no fee. That's because we are enrolled in Medicare and have already paid the fee to Medicare or received a waiver. If I was to check no because we were not enrolled in Medicare, you'll see now that the amount due is $586. That's because I haven't paid it to Medicare or another state agency, and I'm saying I don't have a financial hardship. If there is an amount due here, you would want to just scroll back up to the top to look over the application fee requirements and where to make your check to. This says that you're going to make your check payable to the Department of Vermont Health Access and you are going to send it directly to them. But again, we are enrolled in Medicare in this application, so I'm going to choose yes. That's going to go back to no fee is due, and now I can save and continue. The last page of our application is the Agreement Submit page. This is where you're going to agree to the terms and conditions of Vermont Medicaid. You want to make sure to read over the information carefully. It's going to auto-populate the legal name and the contact information from the first information that we gave it at the beginning of the application. It's also going to let you know that there may be provisions in place for your specific provider type. So in order to determine that, you want to click the link listed below, and this is going to bring you to the vtmedicaid.com website to check to see if there's any provisions regarding your provider type. If there are, you want to review them very carefully because you're also agreeing to those provisions. If not, you can simply come back here. Once you've reviewed any provisions, you can hit Proceed to continue. Once you hit Proceed, the General Provider Agreement is going to populate below, and this you want to make sure to read over very carefully. This is the agreement that you are agreeing to. You have the option to print this agreement or to download it if it makes it easier for you to keep a copy and to read it that way. Once you've read over and agreed to the General Provider Agreement, you can click I agree. It's going to make you confirm that yes, you do agree to the terms and conditions of the provider agreement. Now you'll notice that there is a check mark in the box where you accept the terms and conditions. Under the General Provider Agreement will be the portal registration details. This information is regarding the person that you would like to receive an invitation code upon the approval of your enrollment application in order to be able to manage this enrollment information for the facility. So whoever you want to be able to register for the portal and go in and maintain and manage the information, you want to enter in that information here. Upon the approval of the application, an email will be sent to the email listed here with that invitation code to take and go register for the portal so that you will be able to manage this information. Under the registration details is the signature. You're going to be signing electronically. So the first step to do so would be to click the I accept box. You're going to enter in the last name and the first name of whoever's signing. If you have additional comments you wanted to give DXC or the Department of Vermont Health Access, you could enter that here. And then the last step before we submit our application is to get a verification code at the email that we're giving here. And that is just to make sure that this is a person who has an email address and is submitting this application. So you can enter in the verification email ID here. Once I enter the email address and then hit request verification code, it's going to send that verification code to this email address. I have 10 minutes to use that verification code before it expires. So you want to make sure that when you hit request verification code that you're ready to submit your application. If you're not ready to submit your application because it needs to be reviewed by somebody else, or you just want to review it at a later time and submit it at a later time, you have the option to click Finish Later, which will save all of your information, and you can access it by using your application tracking number and password at a later date. Just note that once you start an application, you have 30 days to complete the application before it expires. We are ready today to submit our application, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Request Verification Code. This is going to process through and let me know that the verification code has been sent to the email that I provided above. I've received that verification code in my email already, so I'm going to enter it in exactly as it is listed on the invitation in my email. So if the letters in that verification code are capitalized, you want to make sure to capitalize them here. If I was to use a lowercase a here, it would not allow the verification code and would not let me submit it. So I'm going to enter in the verification code, and now you'll notice that the Submit button has opened up and we are ready to submit our application. So I'm going to hit the Submit button, and it's going to confirm, do you really want to submit this application? Yes, I do. Once you submit your application, it's going to process through, and it's going to bring up a page that is going to say you have successfully submitted your application. So here is our confirmation page. It lets me know that it was successful. It also gives me my tracking number one more time so I can write it down for reference, but again, it is in the email from the beginning if you need to reference it. It also provides a cover sheet. In the event that you chose to send your attachments to DXC via mail, email, or fax, you would want to access this cover sheet, print it out, and send it along with your attachments. That way, when DXC receives your attachments, we know which application they go to. If you want to print your application, you have the option to do so. You would simply hit the print button that's located on the top right-hand corner. This would give you a full printout of your completed application. If you have any questions regarding your application once you've submitted it, we provide the provider enrollment team information at DXC. You can either email us or feel free to give us a call. Thank you for listening today. Have a wonderful day.